again, it's time for marketing management. So how do you know what a good idea is? Who wants what? How do you find and connect with these people? And how many of them there are? To do this, we conduct research, known as primary and secondary research. Primary research is when you collect specific information about your products or your brand directly, typically things that are very customer facing. These can be things like depth interviews with customers, holding a focus group is an example of primary research, conducting surveys after that, and also doing experiments as part of primary research. We'll discuss primary research in a later segment. You should always start with secondary research in order to vet out your ideas more generally. Secondary research is information that's already readily available out there in the marketplace. Someone else has spent their time and effort collecting and aggregating and has put together and giving you access to it. The advantage of this is you don't have to do the legwork to get this done. The disadvantage is it's going to be less specific to your particular brand or your product features or your customer bases. Now, the most obvious way of doing secondary research these days is to get on the internet and do searches, right? So running simple searches through Google about the things that you're looking for will yield lots of things. Be leaning toward Pew Research or Statista, other things that give you numbers associated with things like market size, market characteristics, who are the competitors out there in this industry, and how big are they? So in addition to looking at trends, you can also examine complaints. Looking at social media feeds, you can look at customer review sites to determine, are there gaps in the market? Where are people unhappy? Then you ask yourself, can we actually build a solution for this thing? If you can, then there's likely an opportunity in the market for you to satisfy. We can then use this information to build products around customer needs and to be able to build those customer archetypes that we talked about in the segmentation and targeting section. This data is critical to being able to define who these people are psychologically and behaviorally and be able to figure out how we're going to satisfy their needs most effectively with what we do as an organization. Let's say that the data tells us that we've got a relatively risk-averse target segment. What this means for us functionally is that we're going to have to do more hand-holding and reassuring in our processes and in our marketing messaging. Now let's say that the complete opposite is true and that we've got this reckless or extreme customer base. What this means for us is that we're probably going to want to stoke the adrenaline and the excitement of this customer base in order to drive their behaviors. Again, by using these data to help us define our target segments will help us better build products and offerings around them and to be able to connect with them. All right, let's take a look at some examples of searches that we might do in order to find some customer characteristics and define them. We'll circle back in the next section and take a look at trends and competitive environments as well using data searches in the environmental analysis section. Let's say that you work for Reformation, which is a women's clothing company, and you feel like there's a bigger opportunity to serve the petite women's jeans category, but you're not sure what these customers look like, where they are, how many of them there are, and how you might best engage with them. So a Google search on petite women complaints shows this article by BusinessInsider.com. These women don't want to shop in the kids section anymore. They don't fit right, and they're women, not kids. 50% of the population is actually in the special size or petite category. Runways tend to focus on aspirational and who yearns to be 5'2". Right? Shorter women also want to avoid calling attention to themselves in general. They want to look good and also blend in. This brings us back to the conversation that we had in segmentation and targeting about demographics not being a great tool for identifying behavioral patterns or how to engage with people. Clearly here, the results are showing us that petite women cannot be lumped into the exact same category for us to be able to engage with them. They have different preferences for what they like to do in life, and they have different preferences for how they want to have brands engage with them. Here we see comments about not wanting to shop in the kids section anymore, not wanting to necessarily call attention to oneself, but still wanting to look good. Is there anything else that we could find by doing additional searches that we can home in on what this customer base looks like and how they want to be engaged by a brand? If we do a Google search on what do petite women enjoy doing, we get these responses from Quora. Interesting comments from numerous women, noting some things that we've seen already, right? That they're viewed as less intimidating and more nurturing, and that people are more likely to help them, but they also feel like they're the shape of a child and they're frustrated by being too short. We might label this archetype as reaching Renee or aspirational Abby to indicate the fact that this segment that we're after has big goals in life. This is a professional who wants to be treated like a professional. This is someone who's tired of feeling less of herself because of her size and because companies aren't making things that fit her needs. Taking these things together, building a brand that empowers these women and normalizes their size might be a big win for a brand. We can start to picture how we might engage with these women. Reformation would want to provide a wide variety of jean sizes that are easy to access and engage with these women in ways that are uplifting and supporting of their drive. Their marketing messages and celebrity models need to include women who are generally identified as petite to show the target segment how great women of all different body sizes and types can look in Reformation clothing. This is very similar to what Dove did with their beauty campaign. So more data can always be found simply by adding things like data, Pew Research, or Statista to the end of your queries. Here, simply by adding the term data yields additional sites about disrupting industries, entrepreneurship.com and abcnews.com, that could inform you of the opportunities and challenges inherent in entering the women's petite fashion market. Adding Pew Research, for example, includes more information about gender divides, professional and workforce issues that petite women are facing. And here, Statista shows clothing, retail, and customer trends. If you're coming up short on finding data from your searches, think about synonyms or alternative phrasings that you can use to get at the information that you're after. Think of anecdotes or brand examples of things that you've thought about that are similar or consistent with what it is that you're looking for. Let's take a look at Red Bull and how we might go about defining their customer archetype. Simply by Googling Red Bull customers, the first thing that comes up is busy individuals who are overly active in their personal and professional lives and who have a fascination with extreme sports. Go figure. This site provides all four major types of characteristics. So there's demographics, there's geographics, you got psychographics, and behaviors. We can then paint a picture of an archetype that's a young professional, hard charging in their early job, post-college, and they want to seek thrills like mountain biking or snowboarding on the weekends and be able to party hard back at the lodge while still handling work and staying focused. This person has a hard time standing still. Let's now chat with industry expert Darren Douglas and see how he deals with analytics and research.
All right, so welcome to the show, Darren Douglas, former analytics manager for Seer Interactive, also headed to UCLA very soon to get your MBA. Go Bruins.
Go Bruins. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Your profile picture on LinkedIn, I was like, this is going to look a lot like Between Two Ferns, where like Zach Galifianakis used Barack Obama,
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, okay. The mookish face and the beard, and then nice.
It's a very quarantine look.
Yeah, the hair is only getting worse and worse and worse. I look at it every day and I go, I should cut this, but then if I cut it, it's probably just going to look worse.
Yeah. And where am I going?
Yeah. So you started out with a CS degree, right? And you kind of moved on to what most would think makes sense. You moved into a development analytics kind of role. But I'm kind of interested to hear how the computer science degree and even your liberal arts background played a role in what you did at Seer. I mean, I think most people go, okay, CS degree, all you did was spend your time, typing and coding, but it's so much more than that. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. So at my time at WNL, I think I declared as a CS major my sophomore year. I didn't come to Washington and Lee with any CS experience, but with all the different technological innovations and the tech wave that was coming along, I thought it was a good place to put my energy. And while I was learning CS, I had the opportunity to also take classes in the business school and a lot of other different departments. And I really took to a lot of the entrepreneurship classes. So that led me to getting involved in the entrepreneurship club on campus, which I think was called the Venture Club at the time. And eventually led me to Venture for America. So I got to sort of balance my interest in entrepreneurship and my interest in technology. So I worked as a software developer, but at a startup when you're wearing a lot of different hats, I was exposed to, marketing, business development, sales, finance. And in that role, I really realized the importance of data. And that's what led me to sort of pursue a career in data and analytics and led me to the position at SEER.
All right. So what were some of the differences when you moved from analytics into management? So you moved from an analytics developer into analytics manager. What were some of the differences there?
To give you some more context on the position at first, when I was originally hired as a developer, I would be working across all of our clients in the analytics division, but I was particularly interested in data science and how that would be related to our clients. So I was working on mostly technical projects to start, but as I got more familiar with the business and I was able to speak up more and share my strategic thinking, they saw a value to have me, more client facing. So I became an analytics manager and was really able to complement the skills of some of the other managers and also speak to our clients and their technical teams to be able to make sure they understood where we were coming from and really get buy-in from both the executive team and the people who would be implementing the work. It's interesting sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say it's interesting. When I was at the startup, I realized that a lot of the times there's a lot of cool technology and possible innovations going on, but getting it executed is more reliant on the management than having the technical know-how or having a team that's able to implement it. So I was happy to be able to focus on the management side there and the execution.
Gotcha. So I'm not sure if you can speak to this, if this is proprietary or not, but what sorts of things were you analyzing? What were the analytics? What kinds of clients, if you don't want to speak specifically about who the clients were, like what is it that you all were doing?
Right. So SEER as a whole has a few different service lines. It started as just search engine optimization and paid marketing, and then analytics was sort of the last one that came on and has grown a lot. But because of our history, we tie in the whole digital experience of our clients. So if it's a higher education client, I was working with one of the top business schools. We're trying to figure out, based on keyword research and based on the full experience of potential applicants online, what's the likelihood that certain demographic groups would tend to apply or would tend to apply and do well because they have tons of data points from when you're thinking of applying, but then for someone who goes into the school, they get data points while you're there and then data points after you leave. And that sort of customer life cycle exists across industry. So if we're working with a healthcare client, it was the same thing. People coming in for visits, what were the different data points that we could gather there? Once they got into their visit, were there any more data points we could pull? And then bridging all those together to get a full picture.
Was there a pretty consistent framework that you could use for that? I mean, you say kind of the application made sense across different fields and whatnot, but were there a lot of similarities that you could go, okay, here's textual information or here's quantitative information, and be able to kind of leverage those in similar ways? Or was it
definitely we definitely had a process that we stuck to, but we had to adjust it depending on where the client was in their development. There's some early stage companies that we're still trying to figure out, we need to collect data. We know there's a lot out there, but how can we collect it? And we would, start that audit process with what are all the different touch points? How can we get all the different stakeholders in the room to set a good foundation? And then there were other clients where, again, we're starting an audit at the beginning, but if they've been collecting data for years and they have some advanced processes already in place, we just want to make sure that they're collecting data accurately. And then at that point, move to the next step to see how can we do this in real time and how can we, start predicting and getting ahead of the curve. So it always started with an audit, but the specific steps depended on where they were in terms of their company development.
So you were trying to figure out what they were already putting into their system, what data were they already collecting? Was it valuable, useful data, or was it kind of garbage in and you were going to get garbage out kinds of stuff?
Exactly. There was a maturity framework that we used often, which was basically, it was something that Google, I think, had come out with, which is basically saying a company can either be one of 4 different stages. So they're emerging and they're not collecting any data. I can't remember the name of the second one, but it goes from emerging and not collecting any data to collecting data, but not necessarily in real time, and analyzing that data and trying to make decisions on it, to collecting data in real time and making decisions on that information, to predicting what might happen and what your customers might do in real time. And that's where a company like Netflix or Amazon is. So we're trying to get all of our companies to that sort of data sophistication. But not everyone was always close enough to do that in a week or a year. It was a long process.
Well, I mean, that's kind of where businesses have to be, right? I mean, this is a consistent theme across a lot of these talks that I'm having with you. You just got to keep moving faster and faster and faster. And the things that are allowing us to move faster, the computer science, the higher levels of, computer technology and the algorithms and things are just getting stronger and stronger. But the faster we move, the faster we have to run to outrun our competitors, right? So this is
exactly going. So they're always looking for new tools that we could use. I think talking to some of the other features we use, I know I mentioned keyword research was one, but if you think of like vacation rentals and clients like that, we would take just the country's weather data and plot that against their user traffic and their user behavior and see, based on the weather that, the weather trends this year and the weather trends last year, how's that affecting their clients and what can we predict for next year based on these weather patterns. So just pulling in different data points, not necessarily ones that they provided us, but things that may be just related to their business and the questions that their customers have.
Gotcha. So across all this, I mean, kind of what makes for a good metric? How do you know when something makes sense? I mean, the weather impacting, people's vacation habits, that kind of makes sense. But across lots of different things like medical, I mean, how do you know what a good metric is?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's some metrics that are generally important to all businesses, like revenue and marketing costs and things like that. But to know the most important metrics or the KPIs, we really relied on the client to tell us that, because we didn't want to say, we're going to improve your brand awareness if that's not something that they're worried about, or we don't want to say we're going to improve improve the customer lifetime value if they're more focused on brand awareness. So we sort of met them halfway. With our audit, we would usually perform that, get their feedback. And then once we have that feedback, that's when we start providing our recommendations. Like, you've told us this is the most important metric. This is how we plan to improve it. You also told us that, you want to have these other metrics. So we're going to put these processes in place to start collecting that data.
Did you ever see any examples where you're like, man, this company, no, you don't have to name any names. Did you ever see any performance metrics where you're just going, what are they thinking?
Definitely. There are companies that would always be worried about you should be worried about where you rank on Google, but obsessively worrying about we're the third one instead of the second on the page is something that it could be important, but if there's no way that you can tie that to you losing money or losing customers, that it may not be the most important thing to put your energy towards. Or also pieces that are just harder to track. So I know we had companies that liked using more traditional advertising like print or billboard and didn't have anything in place to track the performance of those billboards. So if you're going to go that route, I think it's important to just have a way to tie it back to the other data that you're collecting and be able to see your return on investment, especially if it's going to be a big cost.
Yeah. When you all are thinking about proposing different metrics and stuff in different industries, how do you go about being aware of what's out there and what would be valuable? What are the external environmental considerations that are going on that you have to pay attention to? What is your method for that? I mean, are you just, kind of reading trade press? Like, how do you stay up on what would make sense in a particular industry?
I think it's important to have a diversity of perspective and not just work in a vacuum, because if we're working, again, I'll use a healthcare client as an example. they probably aren't the first healthcare client that we had and not the last. So we can use, prior data that we've had or industry data that we have across not just our analytics clients, but across our paid marketing clients and across our SEO clients to figure out what are the general problems that people are having in this industry and how have we helped to solve these problems in the past. And something that we ended up doing more recently was housing most of the client data within a central data warehouse, which allowed us to gather more insights across industries and across clients.
Okay, useful.
I first recognized the power of data and analytics for organizations, and because they have so much to collect and so much to analyze. But I think it's almost just as important or equally important for individuals, not just if you're an entrepreneur, but if you're someone who is pursuing a career in tech or pursuing a career just in business. Knowing the different touch points that you have online, I think is important. So I recently downloaded my Instagram data, or downloaded my Facebook data, and it's crazy how much you have, but you can also analyze that data and learn a lot about yourself. I was figuring out which pictures have I liked, which accounts have I liked the most content for, and on Netflix, which of my profile, which genre do I watch the most content for? So you can sort of take the same principles that you apply for organizations and apply it to yourself and get some pretty interesting findings.
This is very existential. Who am I? Why am I here?
Yeah. And then you realize that Netflix and Amazon and Instagram know you better than you know yourself.
Yeah. So some of those advertising things are scary, where it's yeah, I got to have that T-shirt. That's totally me. So you're going on to get your MBA at this point. What's motivating that?
Yeah, I think although I love tech and I love being a developer so far, I think I'm ready to switch just from the practitioner side to the management side. Industry-wise, having worked across industries, I know that the function I want to be in is more related to data and analytics, but I'm really interested in just entrepreneurship as a whole. And having worked with entrepreneurs in Venture for America, I want to get more exposure to venture capital. And I think having worked as a developer, it would have been maybe something I could have accomplished had I joined another startup. But similar to my Venture for America experience, I recognize the value in sort of a community of entrepreneurs and a community of people all moving in the same direction. So I'm excited to meet the other entrepreneurs in my class, the other potential VCs in my class, and the professors and faculty member that have sort of walked that path before, and sort of bridge that gap between, being a developer, but now being a venture capitalist.
So we're going to see you back on here in a few years as CEO, founder, co-founder?
Definitely. Sooner rather than later.
Yeah, right. You never know what's going to happen, right? You go into a good school to meet other entrepreneurs, and we'll see what happens. Well, Darren, thank you so much for spending your time with us. Give us your insights on analytics and market information. Best wishes for a successful year at UCLA.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Good luck this year.
Appreciate it.
Well, that's all we've got for secondary research. In the next segment, we'll talk about how to survive in a competitive environment. See you next time. Who are overly active in their professional. Try again. What does that say? Here we go again. It's not specifically rated. Teleprompters cost a lot of money. I don't know if you knew this, but this is a low budget flick. Taking these things together, if you remember what they are. Yeah, it's like staring way too long. No, you got to turn and look at the board. Here we've seen some Macarena. Hey, Macarena, hi. No. It's like I feel like I'm same hand motions. It's like just do this, right? Oh no, there's a glass wall in front of me. I can't get around it. No, there's the door. Okay. Where was I? I was in the middle of trying to record a lecture for you. Just for you. You're the only one, right?
Anything else that I need to press before I do something really stupid again?